both before you started your advertising campaign, as well as what you could do during your advertising campaign in order to improve your ROI. So today we're going to be discussing helping ads drive quality traffic. What type of audience does Bing have, and how do we compare to our competitors? Talk a little bit about the editorial review process and quality scores. This tends to be one of the more, I like to call it the black box of advertising, because we all know that editorial policy and quality scores play a huge part into the success of your advertising campaigns. But until recently, both Bing and Google haven't necessarily been super forthcoming in explaining exactly how that algorithm works. So we're going to walk through some of that today. Then we're going to talk about some of the optimization best practices. So what are some things that you can do that take a relatively short amount of time that's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck as far as improving performance? And we're also going to talk about some key features. And then also talk about the Bing Ads Intelligence tool, which I think is one of the most popular, but also one of the best tools that you can use offline for really making improvements to your campaign, as well as really enabling your entire sales or support force to use in order to continue optimizing throughout the duration of your campaign. Then we're going to go ahead and talk about an optimization checklist, as well as some additional resources. So what is the Yahoo Bing Network? Does anybody in the room know what the Yahoo Bing Network was called, or what Bing was called before it was Bing?
Ad Center?
Ad Center, okay. What are guesses? One more guess.
Ad Serve.
Ad Search?
Ad Serve.
Ad Serve, okay. So part of what you said is right. So Bing Ads, the UI, the platform that you actually build your search campaigns in, was called Ad Center, which is now called Bing Ads. But before it was Bing, it was actually MSN Search or Live Search. A lot of people give us combinations of those two. But Bing didn't become the big brand that it is today until we combined forces with Yahoo. And it's still one of the biggest, I would say, points of confusion in the industry, because we didn't buy Yahoo, we didn't acquire Yahoo. It's a partnership. So we partnered together to create the Yahoo Bing Marketplace, which essentially means that the one ad that you create in Bing Ads displays on both search networks, as well as our partner sites. And so again, one ad, both Bing and Yahoo. So right away you're covering two networks as opposed to one if it was just the legacy MSN Search or Live Search. So one of the things that really sets Bing apart, and what the engineers and Microsoft really based Bing around, was not necessarily being a search engine, but being a decision engine. And to that point, one of the things that Bing has been doing is to really make our search engine as socially integrated and as socially conscientious as possible. So some of the things that we've done, for those of you who use Bing Search today, if you're logged in with your Windows Live ID, when you do a search, so for instance, before coming here to Washington, D.C., I was looking for restaurants in the area of my hotel. So I went ahead and I binged that. And because I was logged in, it actually pulled up search results on the right-hand side. I shouldn't say search results, but it pulled up results on the right-hand side from my Facebook feed. So for instance, I was able to see which of my friends on Facebook were in the Washington, D.C. area. It also pulls in information from Twitter, from LinkedIn, even from Google+. We're trying to really make the search experience not necessarily a search experience, but more of a social experience. Because we realize that people take search results very seriously, but at the end of the day, a lot of your decisions come from your social network. So we're really trying to make that an integrated part of the Yahoo Bing Network. So as we talk about our audience and what really makes the Yahoo Bing Network unique, because understanding this is really going to help you optimize your campaigns for success by understanding the network and also understanding what devices and at what entry points your end users are coming from, because it really gives you a better understanding and foundation of who you're trying to appeal to. So Bing powers search on many devices. How many people in the room are using a Windows phone today? Okay, good, wonderful. I'm a little ashamed that the two Microsoft people didn't raise it. Okay, there we go. You can't embarrass me, ladies. So we, of course, power search on Windows 8 Phone. Has anyone gone to any of the Cortana demos? Or seen any of that so far at WC? Okay, 1, 2. If you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, please do so at the Microsoft Central Expo floor. It's our new, it's kind of our new Siri. I guess you could say it's phenomenal, and they do a great job with the demos. But in addition to Windows 8 Phone, we're also the default search engine on Amazon Kindle. For those of you who've heard the announcement about the new Amazon phone, we're also the default search device or default search provider on there. In addition to the Xbox Connect, and what makes Xbox so unique for the Yahoo Big Network is the search results. If you're doing a search on your Xbox, on your Connect, it's the largest room in the house, the largest screen in the house. So search now becomes an interactive, an interactive experience. You have your family there, you have it in the largest screen of the home, so you're interacting with it more. So your search results and your search queries become much more powerful. For those of you who didn't raise your hand about a Windows phone, how many of you use the Apple phone? Okay, well, I'm not ashamed to say that. So for those of you who use Siri, they power Siri. So when you're using Siri to find things, those results are actually being delivered to you by the Yahoo Big Network. And then Windows 8.1 Smart Search, for those of you who are using that. Windows 8.1 is really great because not only are you searching on the internet when you do a search function, but you're also searching across your entire computer. So whether this is pictures, documents, applications, information from the cloud, as well as on the internet. So it's bringing together all of that information in one easy interface, makes it a real one-click, easy search functionality. And although what we're going to be talking about today is more inclusive of the US, we are active right now in 35 markets, and that continues to grow. So let's talk specifically about the audience. So when you think about the Yahoo Big Network, what are some words that come to mind? What are some adjectives about who our audience might be? And nothing you say will affect it. Microsoft users, one hopes, one really hopes. How about aged? What do you think?
Kids.
Kids.
Teenagers.
Teenagers, okay. Anything else come to mind?
Everybody.
Everybody?
I would think
like
more
that.
older, well, not necessarily older, like us, using old, but enterprise users who tend to be more older professionals, because younger people tend to use Google, I think, because it's just what they've always done, maybe they're not in the workforce yet. So.
Yeah, so more B2B maybe? Wonderful. All great answers. So the Yahoo Big Network, we do tend to skew older. And a lot of people do say younger a lot of the time because of the Xbox connection. So those users are definitely part of the network as well. But our sweet spot really is that 35 plus audience. So we tend to skew to slightly older, slightly more educated, and users with a higher household income. So that really is our sweet spot. And a lot of that is because of that B2B audience that we attract. A lot of the entry points is, if you think about where people are coming into the Yahoo Big Network from, they're coming in from sites like MSNBC, CNBC, MSN Finance, Yahoo Finance. There's a lot of sites there that just naturally bring in a user that is in that demographic. But why that's so important is because all of that directly relates to our buying power index. So the unique searchers on the Yahoo Big Network spend on average 31% more than the average internet searcher. That's a huge number. And most recently, we discovered that internet searchers on the Yahoo Big Network spend 9.8% more than Google searchers. So if you think about how much somebody is spending on one sale or one purchase versus Google, think about how that relates to your ROI. So again, having Bing as a component of your search advertising is important, for many reasons, but specifically because of this number right here, because of the buying power index. Now, one thing I do want to say is that we would never say, don't use Google, just use the Yahoo Big Network, because having both is what's going to make your digital advertising campaign a success. But it is two very different audiences. So again, we don't say to pick one or the other, but in order to complement the two, because you're going to be reaching two different audiences. on each ad network. So by having both in your digital solutions portfolio, it's going to provide you with the best coverage. So we have 153 million unique searchers, which equates to about 29% of the overall search marketplace in the United States. So again, here are just kind of a quick snapshot of some of the statistics we talked about. And one of probably the most powerful on here is that there's 54 million searchers you cannot reach on Google with the Yahoo Bing Search Network. So again, it's not about picking one search engine versus the other, but really to make sure that you have a comprehensive search strategy on both search networks. And because we do have different audiences on each network, we want to make sure that your campaign is optimized for the best performance on each network. So we're going to be walking through what some of those optimizations are to make your campaign most successful for Bing. Although I do want to caveat that and say that most of the things we're going to talk about are relevant for Google as well. So editorial review. So when you're getting started with your search advertising campaign, it's important to think about the editorial policies for wherever you happen to be advertising, whether that's with us, with Google, with Facebook, whomever that company is. Everybody has a unique editorial policy. And one of the reasons why I think this is so crucial before you actually start running is that although this can be optimized at any point throughout the duration and life cycle of your campaign, if it's something you don't consider at the beginning, it will set you back and take you longer to recover later on, simply because if you think about Google, if you think about Yahoo and Bing, you know, the review process, it takes a while. So again, if you don't take this into consideration at the beginning, it could set you back, whether that's weeks or whether it's months. So it's something to really take into account and consider before going live. So what does that exactly look like when you upload your keywords and your ads into the system? So when you go ahead and you add those keywords and all of your ads into the Bing Ads UI, they're going to go into an editorial review. This is a back-end algorithm. It's not a manual review process. It's an automatic review process. And it's just going to, based on the policies that we've set forth, decide whether or not your ads are eligible, which means that they'll begin serving right away and that your campaign is essentially live, if you've set it to be live. It's going to be pending editorial review if we feel that, you know, this might be okay, but we need somebody to physically look at it and not let our computer decide whether or not this is acceptable, or it's going to be immediately disapproved. If it is disapproved, within the Bing Ads UI, you can appeal. So there'll be a button that you can press that will start an appeals process, or you can call our support members to begin that appeals process as well. But again, it's important that if something is disapproved, that you begin that appeals process or you make adjustments right away so that that disapproved keyword or ad doesn't just sit within your campaign. It's important to remove that. If something is pending editorial review or it's disapproved and you appeal, it then goes into a manual review. It takes usually about 48 hours, and what happens then is we actually have an editorial support team that looks at those ads, they look at the keywords, and they determine whether or not it's acceptable to run or if it does violate any of our editorial policies. If those ads are approved or those keywords are approved, they'll begin serving right away. If they're disapproved, again, it will give you a disapproval message, and you can either begin that process again or hopefully take a look at what you've done and see how it might not be acceptable for editorial policy. Some of the things that are the most common pitfalls are things within these categories. So gambling, tobacco, alcohol, weapons are not allowed. And you know where some of this can fall sometimes into a gray area. I'll give you a great example for weapons. A couple of years ago, I worked with an advertiser, and it was a large toy store. Because you think toy store. No way are they going to have editorial disapprovals. I'm all excited. I'm not going to have to deal with their editorial team. First campaign we ran, I knew I was going to be in the office all night. Lots and lots of disapproved keywords. Anyone want to guess at a toy store what could have been disapproved? That would have been in one of these categories.
Guns.
Toy guns, Nerf guns. Nerf guns. Because the ad copy did not really specify that it was Nerf toy guns. They really were trying to make it sound maybe a little bit more exciting than it truly was, and it got flagged as weapons. So again, that's an area where very easily our team realized as soon as it went through a manual review process, this is Nerf guns, it's a toy, hopefully not going to harm anybody, and it went live the next day. Again, where we do have problems, if you're advertising, collectible knives is another one. Usually that will go into a manual review process. If it's a collector's item and not actually functional, that's okay to run with us. If it is an actual knife or gun or some sort of weapon, that's violates our editorial policy and it's not okay. Likewise, anything tobacco, alcohol, or gambling related. Pharma drugs and related paraphernalia is another area, as most of you are probably familiar with. We actually work with the United States government on this one as far as making sure that anything related to pharmaceutical drugs are all compliant with regulations from the U.S. government. So that's something we take very seriously as well. And if any of you are in this business or know anyone who is, the list of all the acceptable pharmaceutical related products that we do and do not allow to run are on our website. And then deceptive products and services. So this is another area that, again, is a bit of a gray area because deceptive to one person versus another person could definitely vary. So this is something that, again, typically goes into our manual review process. One of the areas right now that some of you may be familiar with that oftentimes does go through a manual review process is third-party tech support. Again, something where some companies, perfectly acceptable business practices and everything complies with our editorial policies. Some where they're not necessarily clear enough about what their business model is, or if we feel that they're trying to be deceptive as to what their billing practices are or anything like that, would not be acceptable to run on our network. So again, if you do have something that you start with us and it is disapproved for any reason, it's important to remove that right away, because not only is it going to just be sitting there, but it's actually going to reflect negatively upon your entire advertising campaign. So you need to appeal that right away to get that taken care of, or make changes to it so it doesn't hinder the rest of your content, which may be perfectly editorially acceptable. And that relates directly to quality scores. So all of your ads and all of your keywords are going to have a quality score associated with it. So again, by having an ad or a keyword that's disapproved, it's not running, its quality score is 0. It's really not doing any service to anybody within your campaign. So quality scores show not only how competitive your ads are in the marketplace, but also how relevant your keywords and landing pages are to search queries. And this is, again, one of the things that really sets us apart from Google is how we do our quality scores. Because again, we've based our entire Yahoo Bing search network around being a decision engine and not necessarily a quote-unquote search engine. So relevancy as far as keywords and landing pages are really the crux of how we build our quality scores, which is slightly different than how Google does it. So the three main components of how the Yahoo Big Network decide what that quality score is landing page user experience, landing page relevance, and keyword relevance. And as soon as you begin your campaign, all three of these are going to be given a score. Those scores are going to continue to evolve during the duration of your campaign based off of your campaign results, how much traffic is coming to your website, and also if you make any edits or changes to your campaign. So our goal is for all of our customers, all of our advertisers to have a quality score of 6 or better. This is going to allow you to be the most competitive in the marketplace and allow you to have the most competitive CPCs possible. Typically, our CPCs range from about 5 to 15% lower than Google, which really allows our customers to be able to test more with us because, again, you're going to be paying a little bit less for each one of those clicks. So although you're going to be spending less, we continue to want you to spend even less on your clicks. And so by having a higher quality score, that's going to allow you to not necessarily have to bid higher in order to be competitive. So if your ad has a quality score of under 6, you have limited eligibility to be served. This means that while we want you to have 5 to 50% lower cost per click, you might necessarily be bidding the same as Google or maybe even higher because your quality score is seen lower than the standard that we want on our network. And in order to get this, any of your 3 components have to have a core rating. And we'll walk through each of those components a bit more and talk about how you can get out of those pitfalls. A quality score of 6 means all 3 elements have a no problem rating, although we don't necessarily view your ads or keywords as fantastic. You're all compliant, you've just started your campaign and you're good to go. And then anything greater than 6 means that your landing page relevance and user experience is a no problem, and that your keyword relevance is good. So that's really important to know that the only way you can get a quality score higher than 6 is that if your keyword relevance is in the highest bucket, which is good. So really making sure that your keywords are relevant is very crucial to having the best campaign possible on the Yahoo network. So landing page user experience. A lot of this is really common sense. If you think about web pages that you go to on a frequent basis, what are some of the worst things that those sites can have that are going to make you leave the page right away? For me, it's if the site is really slow. If I'm sitting there and I'm just waiting for tons of animations or pictures or music to begin loading, and I'm just sitting there, the wheels are turning, that's a poor landing page experience. Also, if you click on a page and the content is not what you thought it was going to be, if you go to a page for Washington, D.C. restaurants, and instead you get Washington, D.C. tourist destinations or attractions, that's not what I was looking for. I'm going to be unhappy with that landing page and leave very quickly. One of the other things to note is if you're trying to monetize your web page at all with links to go to other sites, or perhaps you're monetizing it with display ads, it's important not to have too much of that on your landing page, because we view that as a negative user experience. So if you have more than 3 advertisements appearing above the fold on your landing page, that's seen as a negative landing page experience for our consumers, and your quality score is going to reflect that. So again, making sure that you keep the content relevant on the landing page, that it's loading functionally, quickly, you don't have excessive graphics, animations. Some of the lowest quality scores we see in this category, or those web pages you go to and you just watch a video for 3 minutes before you see any content, that right away would fall into the pitfall of a poor landing page user experience. So landing page relevance. Again, making sure that when a user is clicking on that ad, that the page is relevant for them, that it has the products and the services that they thought they were going to get. And then, how you can help this, because a lot of times if you have, let's say, a computer site or an IT site, you might be advertising a variety of products and services on one page. We see a lot of times pages that scroll down really, really far with a lot of different content on it, a lot of different products or services. From an advertising standpoint, splitting that up can make a really big difference. For 2 reasons. One, it's going to help increase your relevance for a landing page quality score, but then also it's going to allow you to track your conversions and your traffic more appropriately. So we always recommend that you group related keywords and ads together in your Bing Ads campaign, and then split up your landing pages to allow the most explicit and relevant landing page to be associated with that group of ads or keywords. So again, you can track it better, you can make sure that your CPCs are more appropriately assigned to each of those categories, and it's less unlikely that you would get a poor landing page relevance score. And then keyword relevance. So, like I was saying before about removing any keywords that are disapproved, it's also important to remove any keywords that are underperforming. So, some people put in maybe a dozen keywords to start with, other people a couple hundred. The more keywords you have, the more important it's going to be to at least every 2 to 4 weeks be taking a look at your campaign and making sure that any keywords that are underperforming are removed from your campaign, because this is going to play into your keyword relevance. Sometimes people go ahead and get started and they just want to cast the widest net possible, which is a strategy. But again, you have to continue to optimize and refine that strategy as you continue to run your campaign. Because if we see that you just have hundreds of keywords in there that are not relevant to your goals and to your landing page, we're just going to go ahead and say that this isn't super relevant, this isn't what we want our end users to see, and it's going to reflect negatively in your quality score. Then making sure that you're continuing to add relevant keywords and also adding negative keywords. So if you have a campaign that might necessarily attract people that might be looking for something a little bit more, or you're offering something a little bit more niche, and you find that your keywords are attracting people who are maybe clicking on your page and then quickly leaving because what you're offering is slightly more niche, adding negative keywords is going to help improve your keyword relevancy and again, increase your quality score. And then making sure that you assign the appropriate match types to your keywords as well. So we'll go into this a little bit more in our next section, but it's important that especially when you start a campaign, that you're bidding on all three match types, broad, phrase, and exact. This is going to allow you the most opportunity and room for optimization, and then also to make sure that your keywords are appropriately assigned by match type to again allow you to get the most volume and the highest quality users. There's a lot of content and text on here. These decks are available after the session on the WP site, and all the links for editorial policies and more information about each of these sections is on that as well. So optimization best practices. So again, really what I'd like to call out is optimization can begin before you even start a campaign. So making sure that your quality scores, all the policies are met, and that you have a clear digital strategy is the best place to start. But then continuing to optimize as your campaign is running is going to be crucial for your success. So one of the things that we hear most often, so we do have 30% share of the search marketplace right now, which is a significant amount of traffic. Again, you're always going to be getting more traffic on Google simply because they have a larger share of the marketplace. But 30% of users is certainly nothing to walk away from. However, we always want our clients to get the most traffic that we possibly can. So if you're looking to improve the amount of traffic that you have running with us, it's important to include broad match. Now, a lot of people get a little nervous when I start talking about broad match because it's not necessarily a super explicit digital advertising strategy, but it's something important to play with at some point because it is part of optimizing your campaign, and it is allowing you to cast a wider net. So what is broad match? So any word in your keyword in any order, as long as the words closely related to your keyword match the search query or other input. So here's an example up here. So if your keyword is red flower, if it was an exact bid, only if somebody put in red flower would your search query show. If somebody searched for red flower botanical gardens, then that would be a phrase match and it would go ahead and show up. But if somebody searched for buy crimson flower, for instance, if you're just bidding exact or phrase for red flower, your search query is not going to show. Crimson, red, I don't know enough about flowers to be able to say, but I'm guessing people are probably looking for something very similar to that. If you're bidding on broad, buy crimson flower is going to go ahead and show up, along with the other ones on here. So you're not excluding them, but again, you're casting a wider net of relevant searches. So we've seen that 70% more clicks with broad match compared to using exact match alone. Again, you're casting that wider net there. And 56% untapped conversions are available through broad match. In addition, if you think about the way in which search algorithms work, they're looking at historical information. Because Bing is continuously growing and because we are adding more and more traffic to the network, 30% of daily searches are new. So our algorithms haven't necessarily picked them up yet. So by having broad match, you're expanding your reach to those search phrases and those search queries that we haven't necessarily cataloged yet. So again, we recommend when you start a campaign that you start with all three match types. So exact, phrase, and broad, but that you have different CPCs for each one of those because you don't want to bid as high on a broad search type as you would an exact. Somebody who has an exact search query is very much looking for your keyword, looking for your product. You want to bid higher in order to capture that user and hopefully make the sale. Broad match, hopefully, likely, they're looking for what you're trying to provide for your search query, but it's not going to be as exact. So we want you to go ahead and lower that bid because, again, you are casting that wider net. So if you look at this graph here, this kind of shows you, if you think about the search network in its entirety, how much traffic you could potentially get for each one of these search queries. So again, exact, formal shoes, your match, formal shoes. It's the only way in which your ad is going to show up if somebody bids on that exact query. Phrase, so if somebody again is bidding on formal shoes, formal black shoes, formal shoes for men, something that has that exact query term, but it can be in a phrase query. And then we have something called modified broad. Modified broad is not something we recommend for people who are brand new to search advertising. This does add on an additional layer of complexity, but if you've been doing digital search for a while, you already have a strategy, maybe broad is not part of your strategy, and you want to begin to test it, doing modified broad might be a good place to begin testing. So again, don't recommend this for everybody, but if you already have an established digital advertising strategy, you've been maybe a little bit weary of doing broad because of that wider net, this could be a good place to start. So broad match modifier allows you to control how your keywords match to queries by specifying words that have to be part of that search query. So for example, if my exact query is formal shoes, if I did a broad for formal shoes, anything with the word shoes or with the word formal could be a part of the results. But I want to make sure that somebody searching for formal dresses is not going to find my formal shoes as part of my broad match strategy, let's say. So if I did a broad match modifier and I put a plus sign in front of shoes, that means anybody who's searching for formal dresses, formal party supplies, formal party favors is not going to see my ad. They would only see my ad if the word shoes was included as part of that query. So for instance, fancy shoes, evening shoes could show up as part of that modified broad. So again, you're increasing your traffic, but you're not necessarily letting the complete gate off. You're just opening it part way. And then if you had broad, again, either of those keywords, as long as they appear in the search query and it's a relevant result, is going to appear. So other ways to help increase your Bing traffic. So we talked about it's important to optimize, to look at your keywords and ads at least every 2 to 4 weeks in order to make sure that your campaign is successful, there's nothing that's been flagged for editorial quality score, and then to remove anything that's underperforming. Some of the other things we also recommend doing, usually every 2 to 4 weeks, is running a keyword expansion report. You can either run this within the Bing Ads UI itself, or you can run this through the Bing Ads intelligence tool that we'll talk about and walk through at the end of today's presentation. But what the keyword expansion report does is it provides you with suggestions for additional keywords. And what this is doing is it's looking at not only your campaign, but it's looking at your competitors' campaigns and saying, you know, we see that you have a shoe campaign going here. Based off of traffic we know is on the Bing Ads network and what your competitors are doing, these are 50 keywords that you don't currently have that are receiving traffic and have competitive bids within the UI that we suggest that you bid on. And it's going to provide you with keyword suggestions as well as bid suggestions for those keywords so that you have a good